egresses, and the last count I heard, 19 rooms inside for college students.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fontaine.
Yes, I am the author of a letter that was written.
We recognize that. In fact, we read it for the record to be uncertain that you were here, but we recognize that you were here. Normally, we would not have done that and just made it part of the record, but you're here now.
I have slightly revised versions of that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I have slightly revised versions of that I will provide to the board so that you have the most up-to-date copy. It includes my letterhead and signature of those documents.
Thank you. I would like to avoid reading it again.
I'm going to read it.
All right, very good. I'll take whatever additional comments you have. Thank you, sir.
I believe the board has accurately identified some of the critical issues in this case, and I would like to reserve the balance of my time until the conclusion of the presentation by the other homeowners and nearby homeowners, if I may.
Thank you, sir. Is Cynthia, I'm sorry? Are you?
Cynthia Wells.
All right, well, Ms. Amoroso, you have the microphone. Why don't you give us your name and address, please?
June Amoroso, 7 Salt Meadow Lane in Stony Brook. I think most of what I would have said has been very thoroughly covered. I would just like to add, my agreement with the fact that Stony Brook is a very special area, and the quality of life there and the atmosphere of the neighborhood we need to preserve. The Hawkins house, which is only 500 feet from this property, is, a critical new venture for the community, and it's very important that we don't change the nature of Christian Avenue any further than it already has been damaged. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Williams. I live on 9 Hillsview Road behind this little house. The house I live in, I bought from my family in 2004. My mom passed away, and I took ownership of my father's home. I grew up in this house. I used to play in that house behind me. It was a very nice little house. My house is 3,200 square foot. To put a house that's a little less than a quarter the size of what my house would, is, it would take up the whole piece of property. There is no room on this property. What this man is trying to put on here would take away from my privacy. I live in my home because I want privacy. I don't want people looking at me. I endured this 150 Christian Avenue home, which is also adjacent to the back of my house, party after party after party. I own my own business. I have to get up and work at 3 a.m. When you're woken up at 11 o'clock at night and you are up until you have to go to work with this partying going on, I couldn't even sell my house if I wanted to, if this house goes in. It's just way too large. I agree upon it being, brought up to par and look nice, but don't take away from the historical and make this area like I live in the city. I choose to live out here for a reason. I don't choose to live with mansions that are overtowering my home. When my father built our home, he made it in a way where it's private. That's what I want to continue to have in my home. I don't need people looking at me. I don't need people screaming, young kids, cars racing at night. Still now today, these cars are up and down, in and out of that driveway, which is back to my window of my bedroom.
Thank you for those comments. Questions or comments from board members? Thank you each for coming out. Mr. Fontaine, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would like to add a few more comments in light of what the other witnesses will have to say.
All right, we have 3 other speakers. If you'd like to give us your final comments after they speak, that's fine. You could remain there. The rest of you could just take first row seating, and I'll call up Roberta, Fabiano, John Divany, Susan Rydzeski.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, to give the board some
If you could
context.
just bear with me. Mr. Perez.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Fontana, just rereading your letter again. When you said that the town building inspector had found long-time violations from this owner, are you talking about in the immediate area of this application in Stony Brook, or did you do a search for the whole town, or what area?
We searched for violations associated with this property and also with other properties known to be owned by Ed LaCalzi. And we were told by the building department representative, there's a long history and there's been litigation and you have to go talk to the town attorney's office.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, to provide context, the speakers now are the two adjacent homeowners. Ms. Fabiano is the homeowner of 156 Christian Avenue. Ms. Ryzdecki is the homeowner of 152 Christian Avenue. And the third witness, John Divany, is the homeowner directly across the street from 154 Christian Avenue.
Thank you. Mr. Divany, we recognize you as an attorney. Are you speaking on your own behalf tonight or as in representative of, or in another capacity? On your own behalf. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr.
I'm going
Bergson.
to recuse myself at this point.
Yes, the record will reflect that Mr. Bergson is recusing from the application. All right, then. Of the three new seats, who would like to speak first? Yes, your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Roberta Fabiano at 156 Christian Avenue, Stony Brook, New York.
Thank you. What would you like to tell us?
I just wanted to say that I agree wholeheartedly with all the letters that have been written and what Mr. Fountain had written in his letter in particular. I live right on top of this structure. My property line is less than 31 inches away from the closest corner. As you can see, the way it's located is at an angle, and that's my property line right there. It's right on top of me, and I've been living next to that. I call it a shack. I've been living next to that since I moved in 1997. And I just wanted to, I have a picture of how close that is. I mean, I don't know if you need to see that.
We recognize it from the distance from the survey itself. And for the record, I mentioned several lots to the applicant's representative. One of them was your adjacent lot at 0.75 of an acre with an assessor's record of habitable space at 897 square feet. This is proposed in excess of 2,200. Do you have a comment on that issue?
What is that? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Is your house that size?
I don't
you
know
know?
exactly. It's a small house. I mean,
Okay.
it's certainly, I know it was less than 1,000.
All right, so I guess the point is the parcel is a quarter, I guess a third of the size of yours, yet the house is almost three times the size. So do you want to comment on the conformity of that proposal to the neighborhood? Meaning, would the structure that size on that parcel conform to the area?
My house you're talking about?
No, the proposed
I'm
house.
sorry.
The
The house
applicant's
that's,
Yes.
we're talking about. Oh, I absolutely disagree with having a house that large. It's going to loom over my home. My house is very close to the property line, and I won't have any privacy.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Rydzewski?
Am I allowed to read my statement?
You are. First, if you could start with your name and address.
My name is Susan Rydzewski, and I own 152 Christian Avenue, Stony Brook.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I am the home directly east of 154 Christian Avenue, and I would like to speak against the owner's request for variances on a number of accounts. Old Stony Brook is a mix of well-tended historic properties, newer tastefully designed homes, and in between, smaller bungalows and homes that reflect the summer communities that sprang up in the 20th century. Number 154 Christian Avenue is one of those smaller homes lying on an extremely tiny parcel of land of 0.16 of an acre. The owner's present structure is a mere 3 feet from my property line. To grant any variance to the side property lines will mean that my small Cape Cod home, built in the 20s, will be dwarfed by an enormous two-story home for which no specific elevation plan has yet been submitted. In a second revised application to the town, the owner includes application for yet another extension. The language in the application is very vague, which makes me question the total square footage of the proposed home and its ratio to the land square footage. The home and yard are a dreaded eyesore due to the owner's lack of maintenance. It was recently boarded up due to a multitude of violations, including a makeshift carport, non-existent windows, and open doors. I question the Expeditor's use of the word upgrade. It is more likely that this will be completely new construction, as the present structure appears uninhabitable. With our close proximity to the university and its wonderful offerings comes the reality that many homes in our community are becoming boarding houses. On the east side of my home is the now infamous number 150 Christian Avenue Rugby House that was once home to over 35 persons. The filth, noise, garbage, and destruction to my property has been enormous. The destruction of my home value has been even greater. What was once a tiny summer bungalow like Mr. Lacalzi's property is now a giant behemoth of trash and parked cars. I have lived in the three villages for almost 30 years. Like many residents, I was attracted to our area because of its lack of big business, malls, and fast food establishments. For generations, residents have chosen to preserve our history through the formal establishment of trusts and less formal, simple decisions by most homeowners to care for their homes. 154 Christian Avenue does lie in the Historic District Transition Zone. While not subject to the same governing rules of the Historic District, the Transition Zone should serve as a buffer and transition to the Historic District. Any attempt to build an oversized home on this very tiny parcel is clearly not in keeping with the Transition Zone. The Expeditor's submission of other pictures of large homes being built in our area does not validate his proposal. Rather, it is further evidence of the overbuilding trend we are all fighting. Please deny this application for variance. It is not in the best interest of our neighborhood, and it detracts from the bucolic nature of Old Stony Brook that drew many of us here in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Mr. Devaney, please.
My name is John Divney from 155 Christian Avenue, which is, if you're looking at it across the street. First, on a procedural basis, the applicant, he isn't actually sworn in to testify at this actual hearing. I think he was maybe sworn in earlier this evening, but at a minimum, there should be some notification that he's actually sworn in at this hearing, because they are separate identifiable hearings. In addition, you identified him as an expert. It's not altogether clear to me procedurally what exactly he's an expert on. He certainly doesn't really know the houses in the local community that's impacted right here, other than a grossly inappropriate statement that this is Stony Brook, supposedly meaning that every house in Stony Brook is a large house. Otherwise, there was no basis, as I can see, for expert testimony, and I'm not even exactly so sure what it actually means. With respect to the merits, though, of this application, it is grossly inappropriate, and it doesn't even come close to even attempting to conform to the standards of granting variances. There's almost no variance possible under the town code that is not being asked for. You're talking about triple the size of a lot. It would only really be maybe 1,400 square feet in terms of the square footage. You've got side variances, you've got front variances, you've got back variances. You have the owner of the house has built a carport already without a variance and without a permit. You also have a current violation on the house that was boarded up, in which I think some evidence was presented of it before, which is not noted. The application identified, which I believe was signed by Mr. Magliaro, that it's not in the historic district, which really is, at worst, it's misleading because it's in the transition district, but the transition district basically has the exact same requirements that's in the historic district, so that the initial application that was presented is incorrect. And, this is sworn under oath, and it does make a difference because the letter that came from the historic district adequately represented a lot of the concerns that you would normally have and represented a very well-informed analysis of the impact of this on the